بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And it's been a while. I hope you had a wonderful Eid, and welcome back to another session of Quran analysis. And we started doing Surah Al-Qamar not last week, but the week before that we did the Nahu and the Sarf of ayah number 6 to number 10. So that means this week we will be looking at the explanation and the understanding of those ayat based on what we've done so far, inshallah. Okay. So just to recap, so what we did before is we did اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. We talked about how the day of judgment is near, the signs of the day of judgment are near, and وانشق القمر, and the moon has split. وَإِنْ يَرَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُوا وَيَقُولُوا سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. When they see an ayah, what do they say? Oh, this is just magic. Same old, same old. We're bewitched. This is a spell. This is just some kind of magic that is continuous, right? وَكَذَّبُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٌ. Sorry. And they followed their own desires, so they rejected the truth and they followed their own desires. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّنَ الْأَنبَاءِ مَا فِيهِ مُزْدَجَرٌ. And certainly truth, news from previous generations have come to them. What is deterring warning? Something of deterring warning, something that has warning in them that will stop them and prevent them has come to them. And then it goes on and says, حِكْمَةٌ بَالِغَةٌ, far-reaching wisdom. فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّذُرُ. What other kind of warning would be of benefit to them? What kind of warning would be of benefit to them? And also we looked at that kind of ma as ma nafia. So no warning whatsoever would be of benefit to them. Okay, so that's the double meaning of the ma there. And then today, inshallah, we'll look at ayah number 6 to ayah number 10. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ. So the Prophet is being told, فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِي إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُمْ يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ كَأَنَّهُمْ جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشِرٌ مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسِرٌ. And then we'll go to the next section, because we'll be moving from the day of judgment to another section about the Prophet Nuh. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر فدعا ربه أني مغلوب فانتصر. So that's the section we're going to look at today. Okay, so just to recap, what happened is that we saw how an urgent message of the nearing of the day of judgment has been mentioned, اقتربت الساعة, and how a major sign was shown, وانشق القمر. And what was their reaction? They turned away. يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر. They turned away and call it magic, and they blasphemed the message and they rejected it. وكذبوا, and they followed their own desires. واتبعوا أهواءهم, instead of following the far-reaching wisdom, which had been mentioned before. Far-reaching wisdom, i.e. حكمة بالغة. They didn't follow the far-reaching wisdom. So now warnings won't do them any good. Warnings will not benefit them at all. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ is being commanded, فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ. Therefore, turn away from them. No warnings is going to benefit them. Therefore, turn away from them. So that is what is happening as far as the order of the ayat is being mentioned. Now, when you look at this ayah, the way how the Prophet ﷺ is being commanded, he's being told, turn away from them. But we saw another kind of turning away before. يُعْرِضُوا, they turned away from it. So what's the difference between tawalla and a'rada? Okay, so we're going to start from there. We're going to start looking at the difference between a'rada and tawalla. A'rada has the meaning of putting a distance. So it comes from the word arad, and the arad is basically the wider side, the width, if you will. So if you have something, it has length and width. So width is the arad. Yeah, and it comes in the Quran, عرضها كعرض السماوات والأرض. Its width is the width of the heavens and the sky, the earth and the heaven. Yeah, so the width of something is arad. So a'rada is to put a distance between you and something, to show your side to something. It has the meaning of side. So showing the side, your side to something, like you're turning away and you're showing your side, you're rejecting it, or to put a distance between you and that thing. So that is arada. And that's what they did with the message. That's what they did with the Prophet ﷺ. When they had the Quran, they put a distance between it. And we know this from different parts of the Quran, where they actually told each other, وَالْغَوْ فِيهِ. When you pass the Quran, just make some noise. Put your hands in your ears and just make some noise. Go, don't listen to it. Put a distance between you and it. Don't even come near it. So that's what they did. They did i'rad. But the Prophet ﷺ is being told, tawalla. And again, we talked a little bit about this word tawalla when we were doing Surah Taghabun. And we said that tawalla is when when something is stuck to something else, like something is attached, and you have to peel it away. You have to peel it off. Okay. So basically, the Prophet ﷺ is being told, we know you're attached to them. We know you love them. We know you care about them. We know you want the very best for them. But tawalla anhu, and peel yourself from them, and attach yourself from them. Remove yourself from them. Turn away from them. And of course, you can imagine how painful that must be for the Prophet ﷺ when he's hearing this. These are his people. He loves them. He wants guidance for them. He was sent for their sake, to guide them, to show them the right way. And yet, right now he's being told, no warnings is going to benefit them. Turn away from them. It must be a painful thing. And of course, peeling yourself from something, peeling something it's not an easy process. It's a painful type of process. So you can see the difference between how they turn away and how the Prophet ﷺ is turning away. It's not an easy thing for the Prophet ﷺ to do. But in as much as tawalla has the meaning of peeling away, it has also the meaning of turning to something. So turning towards something. So the Prophet also, from the same word, is being told, turn away from them, but turn towards Allah. So from them to Allah. So there's sort of like a rahmah in there, like he's being told, leave them alone. You focus on Allah, focus on your mission, focus on the message. So that would be the difference between a'rada and tawalla. They did i'rad. The Prophet ﷺ is being commanded to do tawalli. Now, that is فتولى عنهم. And then all of a sudden is يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر. Then all of a sudden the conversation just shifts to the Day of Judgment. Like it's so sudden. You can imagine when it started, it was so sudden. It was اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. It was very difficult language, very scary language. Yeah. But we were still in the present. Like if you can imagine, the scene that is being set is Makkah 1400 years ago. Yeah. So that's when these ayat are being revealed. And that's when the ayah is starting. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر وإن يروا آية يعرضوا. So it's addressing the mushrikun of that time. If they see an ayah, they turn away, and news has come to them. It was the present time, if you will. When it was being revealed, it was the present time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden we go into يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر. We go into Judgment Day. We go into the future. So you can imagine from the time of the Prophet, now all of a sudden we're going to the future. So there's a shift from what is happening to the Day of Judgment. When you look at the word يوم يدعو الداعي, we discussed this when we did Nahu. We said يوم is a ظرف, and it could be the ظرف for the fi'il يخرجون, which comes later. So here, in a sense, يوم is muqaddam. So it's being given an emphasis. It's being given importance. So يوم is, Allah is emphasizing, you better pay attention on a day that is coming, a day that a caller will call to something terribly unfamiliar, to something terribly strange. So you can hear the language. It's very scary. First of all, it's being given emphasis, the Day of Judgment. And we also said this yawm could also maybe go back to فما تغني النذر. فما تغني النذر يوم يدعو. In other words, فما تغني النذر يوم يدعو الداعي. What reminder would benefit them on the day when the caller will call them to something evil? So it could either go back there, or it could go back to يخرجون. which comes later. In other words, it's either way, whether you say it's going back to فما تغني النذر, it's going back to what warnings would benefit them, or if you say it's going to يخرجون, either way it's referring to the day of judgment, and here the day of judgment is being given importance. Okay, now even if you just look at the way it has been said, يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر, it's very mysterious language, like a day, which day? So you can imagine some people are hearing this and they're saying, beware of a day in which the caller will call you to something nukur, something mysterious and strange and unfamiliar. How many questions do you have in your mind? First of all, which day? Which caller? Who is he calling? To something nukur? What is this something that is strange? What is the strange thing? So there's a lot of mystery. And this mystery emphasizes the fear in the language that is being portrayed. And we're going to see fear and mystery being captured throughout this entire surah. That, like, there's a lot of mystery, very exaggerated language. Like the form that are being used is either there's a lot of emphasis, muqaddim, or there's but mubalagha form being used, which is an exaggeration. So there's a lot of fear and mystery being portrayed in this ayah. Okay, and then you look at the next word, يوم يدعو الداعي. We expected it to be a da'i because it is ism manqus, it is naqis, and we know in naqis when you have al, the ya comes back. So we expected it to be a da'i, except in the Quran the ya is not there. So what are the implications? These are some of the things that I could find. Different people have come up with different things. Again, it's just people's ijtihad to make out what the Quran is all about. So one aspect of it is that they said, you know how we normally say if you increase the letter, the meaning increases? So if you increase the ya, if the ya is there, and it happens also in the Quran, then everyone is being addressed. Entire humanity as a whole is being addressed. Everyone. So it's more inclusive. If you have the ya, if the ya is included, then the people being talked to are inclusive, like it's everyone. Okay, if you remove the ya, then you're talking to a specific group of people. The group is not inclusive anymore. Now it's exclusive because you excluded the ya. Now it's a smaller group. The word became smaller, and now it means that you're speaking to a smaller group. That's how they've seen it. Okay, and and if you look at the people being addressed in this ayat, these are the disbelievers, the mushrikun. They're the ones being told, you know, وَإِن يَرَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُوا وَكَذَّبُوا فَكَذَّبُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا. They're the ones who are being addressed. Yeah. Even when the Prophet is being told, فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ, turn away from them. So they're the ones being addressed. So يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ is saying, like, when a caller will be calling them. So it's addressing a smaller group. It's addressing the disbelievers. That's one aspect of it. Some have said that yeah is harf mad in tajweed. Yeah, when you're reading yeah, you prolong the yeah. Ad-da'i, like it's you prolong it. It's harf mad. Yeah, it's a mad letter. Not like crazy letter, but it's a mad letter, right? So if you remove it, then you shorten the duration of time because it takes you longer to say ad-da'i. It takes some time to say that. Now, if you remove it, it means it takes less time. So the implication could be that the duration between this happening, يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ, it's very short. There's very limited time. Remember in the beginning, اقتربت الساعة. The hour has already drawn near. وانشق القمر, and the moon has already split. So what are you guys waiting? Why are you wasting your time? يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ. The caller is about to call you. So it basically shows the duration of time is very short for this thing to happen. Yeah, so that's the other implication. Others have said that it is for takhfif, to make it sound light, for the ease of calling. Like you think this is something impossible, like they would mock it and they would assume, this would never happen. This is so easy. Like the caller would just call. It's so easy for the caller to call the call, to make the call. Yeah. So don't think of it as a difficult thing. Don't think of it as an impossibility. Allah makes it so easy by even removing the ya. It's an easy thing for Allah to do. right? So those are some of the implications that I could find. Then you come to this word nukur. يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر. When the caller calls to something nukur. Nukur is, first of all, an exaggerated form. It's a mubalagha form. The masdar is nukur. Nukr with the sukun in the kaf. Yeah, nukur. But nukur fu'ul is a mubalagha pattern. So that means, first of all, whatever this is extreme, is exaggerated, is hyperbolized, is a lot. Yeah, whatever this nukur is a lot. And again, you see the fear because mubalagha is being used, so the fear is being created. So some of the meanings of nukur is something that is disturbing, something unfamiliar, something strange, something despised, something ugly, not agreeable. I mean, it has come in different forms in the Quran. You have the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the angels came to him and he presented them with food, and then he didn't see that their hands were reaching out to them, to the food. فَنَكِرَهُمْ. So he felt strange. He found them strange. So he's like, what kind of people are this? I mean, you can imagine travelers, if they're traveling throughout the land, they're going to be tired, they're going to be hungry, and they've been walking for so long. So you imagine if you present food, they're going to want to eat. Yeah, they're going to want to eat. And he didn't even see their hands reaching out to eat. So he found them very strange. Yeah, the Quran says, nakirahum. He found them super strange. Like, what kind of people? These are people unfamiliar. Like, what kind of people are this? What kind of travelers are this? You would imagine that they would be just gobbling up the food and eating. But they were just sitting there. They weren't even bothered. Like, the food didn't even do anything. So he found them strange. This word is used to find something strange, to find something unfamiliar, not agreeable, something that is disturbing. He was disturbed by that. He was like, what is going on? Who are this? And then it's also used in the story of Sulaiman and Bilqis. When Sulaiman asked for the throne to be brought, and the throne was brought, قال, he said, نكروا لها عرشها. Change عرشها. Change something on her throne to make it unfamiliar to her, to make it a little bit ugly, to make it a little bit strange to her. So that when she came and she saw it, and Sulaiman asked her, do you recognize this? She was like, wait a second, I don't know. It's a thief, it's my throne, but I don't know. كأنه هو. I don't know, it looks like it, but I'm unfamiliar with it. Like, there's this thing here that I find ugly. I don't know. You did something to it? What is this? So nakir is used in that sense. And then again, you have in Surah Luqman, Inna ankar al-aswat, that's sawt al-hamir. The ugliest type of sound, the strangest, the most unagreeable, disturbing kind of sound is the sound of a donkey, right? So something that is ugly, unfamiliar, strange, despised, you don't like it. So it comes in different, and munkar are all kabih, ugly things that are not liked, yeah, despised. So you can imagine shay'in nukur, all these things, you are unfamiliar, you don't know what it is, it's extremely strange, it's disturbing, it's despised, you don't like it, you don't want to be near it, and that's what you're being called to. You don't even know what it is because it's still mysterious. Again, you hear the language of mystery and fear. So you can imagine, you don't even know what it is, but you know it's terrible and you don't want to be next to it, and yet you're being called to it. Subhanallah, it's mysterious and fearful. Let me give you an example to further that example of mystery and fear that is being portrayed here. When I come and tell you, the day he finds out, you're gonna know. Like, you will know what will happen. I haven't even told you who this person is. I haven't told you what will he find out. I haven't told you what will you know. But just the way I spoke, you were afraid. You're like, okay, what? Who? When? What? Why? How? Like, what's going on? Like, there's a lot of mystery and fear being generated in this ayat, and you're going to see that throughout. So Allah is saying, The day a caller, which day? Which caller? Calls who? To something terrible. What is this something terrible? What, like there's a lot of questions that you're asking yourself. Who is he calling? What is he calling to? Who is this caller? Which day are we talking about? What is going on? There's a lot of interest, mystery, fear that is being generated. Okay. And as if, you expect, now that you have all these questions in your mind, you expect, okay, maybe Allah is going to answer me in the next ayah. Maybe he's going to tell me, who is this caller? When is this day? What is happening? Please clarify for me the situation. No, the next ayah is more fear on top of fear. Like, you're already afraid now. Like, what's going on? Okay, which day are we talking about? What is going on? What is this shay'un nukur? You're already, roused up a bit. But then Allah is like, no, I'm not yet done. I want to paint for you the picture of this day of judgment so that you can understand the gravity of اقتربت الساعة, the gravity of the hour has come near, the gravity of seeing the sign of Allah and rejecting it. So Allah is going to instill even more fear. خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُم, he says. خُشَّ, their eyes will be lowered in humility and shame. And of course, خُشَّ is another mubalagha form. خشع, that's the verb. خاشع, that would be the اسم فاعل. خشيع, the اسم صفة, right? But this is mubalagha. This is خشعا, فعلا form. Yeah. So obviously there's already a exaggeration being captured in this word خشعا. Okay. Now, the idea, the feeling of utter humiliation, that is what خشعا basically is. The feeling of humiliation, defeat, and regret in this dunya. Just a couple of ayats back, what happened? They didn't care. They were shown a sign, but they didn't care. يعرضوا فكذبوا واتبعوا أهواءهم. They didn't care at all. But now they're being shown a snippet of the day of judgment, what will happen to them, and they are completely broken on the day of judgment. They're vegetables, like they're just looking down, completely regretting their actions, completely in shame and humiliated. This is the state they're going to be. You can imagine. So we went from the present, the Quraysh were like, the mushrikun, يعرضوا كذبوا اتبعوا أهواءهم. That was their state. They were ignoring the message. They in fact called it what? سحر مستمر. This is just magic. And then now Allah is showing them a glimpse of their future. This is how you're going to look. You are going to utterly regret this action. You're going to be in shame and in humility. And again, subhanallah, amidst this fearful ayat, amidst this scary ayat, Allah is painting a picture of just fear. Yet, when you actually think about it, why would Allah show them a glimpse of their future? Because Allah is merciful. Because Allah is trying to tell them, listen, we're giving you a warning. And this entire surah, by the way, is all about warnings. It begins with a warning, it ends with a warning. Everywhere in the middle is just warnings. So Allah is telling them, listen, this is your future. This is how your future looks like. Are you going to listen? Are you going to heed? Are you going to stop being arrogant? Are you going to follow the message? Don't be like those who came before you. And again, he's going to talk about that. So Allah, out of his rahmah, is showing the mushrikun, is showing the disbelievers their future, and is telling them about their future, how they will be, in such a fearful tone, so that perhaps they can change, so that perhaps they can find it in themselves to believe in the message and avoid this future. This future has not happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. Even for us, it hasn't happened yet. So we have an opportunity here. Allah is giving us an opportunity to change before it's too late. Before it's يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِ إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ. So just the rahmah of Allah in this fearful, in this mysterious and terrifying ayat, you find the rahmah of Allah. It tells you something about who Allah is and how much his rahmah. I mean, if his rahmah was divided into 100 parts and 99 of those parts were left for the day of judgment, imagine how Rahim and Rahman Allah is. If Allah talks about his rahmah encompassing everything, وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, his mercy has encompassed everything, and his mercy has overcome his anger. You can imagine how merciful Allah is at the end of the day. And we'll also continue to see these snippets of mercy in this fearful ayah, surah. Even though this surah is highly exaggerated in terms of fear, we will still see snippets of mercy. And that is from the beauty and of the nature of who Allah is. SubhanAllah. He is amazing, truly. And then we talked about khusha as being mubalagha. So it's extremely humbling of the eyes. It's not just your eyes looking down. It's an extreme version of that kind of khushu'. Okay. Now I want to give you an example. Okay, so you find that in other places in the Quran, the word khushu' is being used. Khasha'a absaruhum, again, it's used, but not in this mubalagha form, not in this exaggerated form, right? So when you look at what is being said and you look at the theme of the surah, which is all about warnings, you understand why the mubalagha form is used. For example, if you see your kid you're in the kitchen, you're cooking, you're doing whatever you're doing, and then you see your kid is coming very close to the fire, and he is extremely close to the fire, and you see danger right in front of your eyes. What do? You at that moment, you don't speak normally. At that moment, you don't like, hey son, you're very close to the fire, please move away. That's not the tone you're going to use. You will scream. You'll be like, you, watch out, fire, move away. Like, it's going to be extreme. It's going to be shouting. It's going to be short, precise, and exaggerated. You're not going to speak in full sentences with exclamation, with punctuation marks, and with please. And you're not going to be polite at that moment because you sense a lot of danger. These people are very close to the fire of Jahannam. They are extremely, in fact, Allah is showing them their future. They're already in it. Like, their future is already in it. So Allah is saying you're playing too close to the fire. So the language being used is not going to be polite. The language being used is not going to be, nice and soft. And it's going to be extreme. It's going to be exaggerated because the danger is too much. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. The danger is very, very near. So that is why the language, you see the language of this surah is very extreme, because the danger is very also extreme, and where they have reached is extreme. And that's why the warnings are very harsh and very emphatic. Now I was asking myself, why eyes? Why did Allah say خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُم? Why absar? Why not wujuh? Because wujuh, faces, have been mentioned before in other places in the Quran. Allah has mentioned their faces or their heads would be cast down. They'll be looking down. Why particularly the eyes? So it raises a question here. Now, I was thinking perhaps it could be that the very same eyes that saw a miracle just a couple of ayat back, اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر, they saw the splitting of the moon with their own eyes. So they saw an ayah, they saw a sign from Allah with their own eyes. These very same eyes that rejected that message, that rejected that sign, because what did they do when they saw that sign? يعرضوا. They put a distance between it. Yeah? They turned away from the sign. But these very same eyes on the day of judgment, they will be forced to be humiliated. They'll be forced to be in shame and humility. These very same eyes that rejected the message. And again, the idea of eyes, when you look at shame, when somebody is completely embarrassed and completely in shame, where do you normally see? They don't look up. When somebody is completely ashamed of their actions, they can't even look up, they look down. That is the state of shame. So Allah is capturing the extreme shame and regret that these people will be in just by mentioning eyes. Because when somebody is completely ashamed of their actions, they can't look you in the eyes. They can't look up. They're just constantly looking down, regretting what they did. And this is, again, mubalagha. This is extreme shame. They're probably dying inside with guilt and fear and shame. So, subhanallah, just by mentioning the eyes here. Again, you get the language of extreme fear, mystery, just that is being portrayed in this surah. Then we go to خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُمْ يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. They come out from their graves. But wait, we know the word for graves is qubur. Qabr, qubur. What is ajdath? What is this ajdath happening here? So when you look at this word actually indicates like a very ancient grave, a long time ago, a grave that happened a long time ago. So very, very old graves. So what is the implication? What does this mean? Subhanallah, look at the precision. Look at the precision of Allah's words and how Allah chooses words. In other words, these graves will be there for a really long time, which again speaks to the fear. Because look, who is going to get the punishment of the grave? These very same people. I mean, it mentions in the Quran how Fir'aun is going to be tortured before he's entered into the fire. Before he's entered into Jahannam, he'll be tortured. So these people are going to be facing adhabul qabr before even the real adhab. And it's not going to be for a short period of time. No, sir. It's going to be ajdath. The graves it's going to be a long time in the grave. So there's going to be punishment there that awaits them, the fear. So just capturing this. And again, we don't know. We don't know how long humanity has been there. Some say it's 60,000 years. Some say it's 200,000 years. Some say it's longer than that. You can imagine a 200,000-year-old grave. This is a really, really long time this person has been in the grave. Subhanallah. So even just by the use of the word ajdath, it captures the reality of what is being said, and again speaks to the fear of what is happening in this surah. Subhanallah. Now Allah goes on to describe how they will come out. يخرجون من الأجداث. How they will come out like locusts, like spread out locusts. كأنهم جراد منتشر. Like they are spread out locusts. Now this language is the language of tashbih, the language of likeness, of similes. Like if I said, I am as strong as an elephant. I am as strong as an elephant. I am likening my strength to that of an elephant. So in other words, Allah is likening the way they will come out of their graves like locusts that are spread out throughout the land. Now, if you're anywhere from my region, if you're anywhere near, if you're from East Africa, which some of us are, or maybe the Arab Peninsula, Yemen, around there, you have experienced locusts. Even, in fact, a couple of years ago, I think in 2020, we had a locust infestation, one of the worst that we have ever experienced. The devastation was just extreme. Like these things, they just eat, reproduce, eat, reproduce, eat, reproduce, and they just fly long distances. And now we're going to talk about locusts so that we can understand exactly what is Allah trying to say. Yeah? What is Allah trying to tell us here? Okay. So I'm going to read to you a couple of things about locusts. First of all, just listen and make sure you like note some of these things down. One, they appear suddenly, only when conditions are right. And what are those conditions? After a heavy rainfall. So if the previous year there's a lot of rainfall, then those conditions become right. Basically, there's a lot of vegetation and they get excited and they just eat, reproduce, eat, reproduce, eat, reproduce, and it goes on and on and on. So they appear suddenly, out of nowhere. If the conditions are right, after heavy rainfall, you see them appearing. And they don't just appear like in small numbers. No, they appear in crazy numbers, like up to 80 million hoppers in a square kilometer. Imagine a square kilometer, and now you have 80 million of those things in 1 square kilometer. Like, it's just crazy numbers. And they move non-stop. Like, they just fly and non-stop, eating, reproducing, flying, like non-stop. That's what they do, right? And they go in a particular direction. It's not like they just fly aimlessly and they go everywhere. No, they know where they're going. So they go in a particular direction. And their swarms could last years. I did not know this. It could last years if human beings do not intervene. If we don't come up and decide we're spraying pesticides and insecticides and all these different things, if we don't intervene, they could just continue doing this, eating, reproducing, and flying. Like, subhanallah, so scary when you think about it. Now let's come back to I'm gonna skip some facts here, but you can go and actually just research about this. It's so fascinating, this stuff. And it has happened so many times that you have a lot of information on the internet that you could read. Now, in other words, let's come back to the locusts. In other words, when the conditions for judgment day are right, just like when the conditions for the grasshoppers are right. What is the condition for the grasshoppers? Heavy rainfall. So in other words, when the rain of life enters into the decayed bodies from ancient graves. Doesn't this sound familiar? And again, the motif of rain and life, because in the Quran, life is a motif for rain, and rain is a motif for life. Like, it's sometimes used like that. Yeah, we send down rain and it gave life to an earth that is barren. That happens a lot in the Quran. So you have rain being associated with life, and here we are seeing a similar idea where you have heavy rainfall that makes these grasshoppers come to life. And in the same way, the day of judgment, the life will enter into the graves of these old, ancient people, deceased people, and they will come back to life. Suddenly, they will just come out in unprecedented numbers, in huge numbers, just like the locusts, right? Just huge numbers, spreading the entire horizons. Again, moving non-stop, just like the locusts, moving non-stop to a particular direction. يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِي إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ. The caller will be calling them, and in the next ayah we'll see مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِي, rushing towards the caller. They're moving in a particular direction. Subhanallah, just like the locusts. And this event on the day of judgment, how long will it last? We know the day of judgment is 50,000 years. It could last years. Subhanallah, just like the swarming of locusts could last years if not intervened, if not stopped. Subhanallah. Now you start to see the parallels. When Allah is saying just يخرجون من الأجداث كأنهم جراد منتشر, you actually now get a clear picture of like, whoa. And maybe I didn't even capture everything. This is what I could find. Me and my limited skills and my limited knowledge. What if a proper scientist who has been studying locusts for I don't know how many years came and just did a study, a comparison between the disbelievers on the day of judgment and locusts? I don't know what else we could come up with. Subhanallah. You can imagine just the precision of Allah's words. And how can you not worship a God that knows this? Like, Allah is Al-Alim. Subhanallah. His knowledge is just, Subhanallah, amazing. And again, when you hear this, it strikes fear in your heart. Like, imagine the situation. Yeah, the theme of fear keeps on continuing. And you think it's going to stop? No, we go into the next ayah. مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ. مُهْطِعِينَ. This word means rushing, racing, moving quickly. Subhanallah. Now let's pause here for a second and let me give you an example. If there was a forest, and this forest, like, nobody knows anything about it, and you hear that like there's a lot of fear around it. At night, it's very scary. There are animals in there. I don't know, God knows what else is in there. There's so many different kinds of creatures in there. And then I told you, go in the forest. First of all, would you even go there? Absolutely no. You'd be like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going there. And if I made it worse and I say, okay, go there at night, you'd be like, not a chance. What if you had a person who was actually rushing towards this forest? Like, you'll be like, this is crazy. Look at this person. Doesn't he understand the type of danger that is waiting for them? Like, he's rushing, he's running towards this danger. It doesn't make any sense. But they remember, on the day of judgment, they don't have a choice. They had a choice here on earth, but on the day of judgment, they don't have a choice. So they're actually rushing to the thing that terrifies them. They don't even know what it is. It is just shay'in nukur. It's just something terribly strange and unfamiliar. They don't even know what it is, but it is scary. So you can imagine the kind of fear in their hearts. How scared are they right now? Just walking towards something they don't even understand, and they're rushing towards it. Again, the fear is just being heaped on. Fear upon fear upon fear. Subhanallah. مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ, as they rush towards the column. And while they're in this situation, there's another description, another hal that is being mentioned. يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسَرٌ. And the fact that, by the way, يقول الكافرون, al-kafiruna is mentioned here. So what was the when you were reading this surah, nobody was mentioned. It was like just فتولى عنهم فكذبوا. It was just them, they, them. Yeah, a lot of they, them. And then all of a sudden, يقول الكافرون, the disbelievers who said, this is the first time it's actually being mentioned. Okay. At first, it was just they, them. So maybe the disbelievers who are hearing this ayat, they're like, it's just talking about them. It's not me. It's them. It's those other guys. It's not us. You know, it's not disbelievers. It's just those other guys. You know, maybe they were feeling that, but no, Allah pointed it out. يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ, the disbelievers would say. So if you are doubting whether you are in this group, yeah, you are in this group. So that's kind of like what is being said. And again, remember when you were reading يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِي إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ, when a caller calls who? Who is he calling? That was one question in your mind. It's being answered. يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ. It's calling the disbelievers. So you kind of like see the answer came way later after the fear was described in such extreme versions. And then now Allah kind of answers your questions like, oh yeah, we're talking about disbelievers. By the way, in case you're wondering, in case you are not sure, we're talking about disbelievers here. يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسِرٌ. Now, before even we go to Asr, imagine, like, remember the different groups, the audiences. We have the kafirun, the mushrikun, the disbelievers. We have the Muslims, the few Muslims who have embraced the weak, the Bilals, and you know the few Muslims who are there. And you have just the general masses who don't know where they are. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ is also one of the audience who's receiving this ayat and is reading this ayat. And we shall also look at how maybe he's being impacted by this ayat as well. So the believers at this time, when this ayat are coming down, they're facing a lot of persecution. Life in Mecca is very difficult. They're being tortured. They're being denied their rights. They're being, you know, hit and abused, and like so much is happening just because they became Muslim, just because they accepted the truth. So they're facing a lot of difficulties. So when they hear this message, يقول الكافرون هذا يوم عسر, it's a sort of like a relief for the believers. Because guess what? We are going through a difficult day today. Like, Muslims are being persecuted and they're being harmed, and they're thinking, oh, this is so difficult. But when they hear that the disbelievers will have a difficult day, it kind of gives them hope. It kind of gives them a sense of justice. And subhanAllah, we are seeing the same thing happening with our brothers and sisters in Gaza, and especially in Gaza especially, and in Palestine in general. Like, what they're going through, the kind of persecutions, the kind of torture, the kind of just inhumane treatment that they're getting there. Subhanallah, may Allah protect them and accept them as shuhada and have mercy on them. Subhanallah, like, it's just extreme what they're going through. But just knowing that the disbelievers will get way worse, it kind of gives you a little bit of alhamdulillah. Yeah, like there's hope. There's a sense of justice. There is peace, not peace, but there's peace in the hearts. Like, something would come out of this. It's not for nothing. So you can imagine also the Muslims are feeling a little bit of joy, if you will, about this ayat at the same time. And what do they say? يقول الكافرون هذا يوم عسر. They say this is a difficult day. But no, they didn't say this is a difficult day. They say يوم عسر. It's not يوم عسير. It's not عسير. عسير would be difficult. Yeah, that would be difficult. But they said عسر. Like, again, another mubalagha. This is another mubalagha form. So you can see, like, even the difficulty that they would face is extreme difficulty. So they're not just saying this is a difficult day. No, they're saying this is a day that has a lot, extremely difficult. So again, another mubalagha being mentioned there to continue the idea of fear and mystery that is being presented in this surah. Now, when you look at this surah, or this particular ayat, starting from يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر, we start from خش عن. There are 4 ahwal, there are 4 hals. Yeah, we call them hals. مفعول حالز. So therefore أحوال that I mentioned. The first one is خش عن. That's the first one that is mentioned. And then the second one is كأنهم جراد منتشر. So how are they going to be coming out of their graves? First of all, their eyes are going to be cast down. Second of all, they're going to come out like locusts. Third of all, مهطعين, they're going to be rushing. And fourth of all, they're going to be saying يقول كافرون هذا يوم عسر. They're going to be saying, oh, this is a difficult day. As they rush towards the Shay'in Nukur, they say, this is an extremely difficult day. This is an extremely difficult day. And يقولون, it's not that they just say once. They keep saying, yeah, this is an extremely difficult day. An extremely it's like they're adding fear on top of their own fear. Already as they're rushing, they're consumed by fear. But by even saying it, they're adding fear on top of fear. Subhanallah. I can't even imagine what this is like. It's crazy. But anyway, out of all these four ahwals, only one is mentioned first. Only one is brought before the fi'l. So the fi'l is يخرجون. But you have خش عن أبصارهم يخرجون. So it's muqaddam. Why? Again, you understand the idea of humility that would be on this day for these people. The kind of shame that these people would be feeling. So Allah is putting importance on the shame. Right now, they're arrogant, they're feeling big, they're feeling, oh, they don't really need the message. They can do whatever they want to the Muslims. They can torture them. They're arrogant, they're haughty. Like what we are seeing right now with our brothers and sisters in Palestine. The amount of arrogance that these criminals have, you know, with what they're doing. Like so arrogant. But no, on the Day of Judgment, خش عن أبصارهم. خش عن أبصارهم. They're going to be so filled with extreme shame and humility and regret that is what captures that is given importance in these different kinds of hal. Now we're going to go to the next section. So let me go to the next slide here. Okay. So now we're going to another section. We finished the section of the Day of Judgment. Now we're entering into a new section, and this section is going to take us the bulk of the series, basically. So you have the introduction. Allah introduced this surah. He talked about the warnings and the signs came to them, and they rejected the warnings and the signs. And he talked a little bit about Day of Judgment, and it was terribly, like the description was terrifying. Yeah. And now we're going into the body, the main subject, the main, like, if you will, like if you're writing a story, you have introduction, body, and conclusion. So now we're entering into the body, like the main thing. Yeah. And then after that, we'll go into the conclusion, which is again a mirror, a beautiful mirror image. Again, I can't wait to look at the order of this beautiful, beautiful surah, inshallah. So now let's introduce this section. This section begins with كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر. That's how it begins. So you have 5 nations that are mentioned in this section, and each of those nations, it highlights an aspect of a crime that was committed against the prophets or against the revelation, against Allah, something, a crime that was committed. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is that I found interesting is that there are actually 3 prophets that may have been alluded to in these stories, like either they were mentioned in one way or another. So you have Nuh that has been mentioned explicitly. You have Saleh that has been alluded to. He hasn't been mentioned explicitly, but he has been alluded to. And then you have Lut that has also been mentioned explicitly. And I think there's a very interesting observation that is happening there. Why these 3 were mentioned? One of Musa was mentioned and Fir'aun was mentioned instead. So in the story of Fir'aun, we'll see that only Fir'aun was mentioned and no mention of Musa. And also we'll see in the story of Ad, their prophet is not mentioned, it's just Ad. Like, so there's that interesting, I don't know much about it, but I have an idea. We'll talk about it. And then we have 4 of those nations, they end with the mention of the Quran. So again, the Quran is a constant mention after each of these nations. So you have وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, repeating 4 times. A nation, an example is given about a nation, and then you have فَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Then another nation, and so on and so forth. So it's really a beautiful order. And each of these sections has a very, very beautiful order. Now, we talked about how it started from the present. Then we went all the way to the future. And then now from the future, Day of Judgment, we're going all the way to the past. We're going to كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح. We're going to all the way to قوم نوح. So we're going to the past. So the focus goes all the way to the past. As if the mushrikun are being shown, listen, this is where you are. This is where you will be if you follow these people. If you do exactly the same as the Qawm Nuh did, this is exhibit A. This is your evidence. If you behave like this is where you're going to end up with. So Allah is being like, is taking them towards time to show them, to paint a clear picture of that. And again, this is a mercy. This is a mercy. Like Allah is doing this. He's showing them the future. He's showing them a previous nation that did the same thing and they ended up where they ended up. So if you don't understand, if you don't accept this message, this is where you're going to end up with, right? Subhanallah. Now, remember when we said وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّنَ الْأَنْبَاءِ مَا فِيهِ مُزْدَجَرٌ مَا فِيهِ مُزْدَجَرٌ. They certainly received news of what has deterring warnings. What are these deterring warnings? And Allah is saying, look, story of Nuh. This is one of those cases. This is exhibit A. This is an example of those deterring messages, deterring warnings that we sent you. You don't want to listen? I'm going to repeat it to you. I'm going to give you the story once again. I'm going to explain to you once again, what are these messages? What are these news of deterring warnings that you received before? So again, you see how the connection, how before, what came before and what is happening right now. It's sort of like a connection. Look at the word كذبت, and you expect, okay, كذبت الرسل, كذبت Nuh. Who did they reject? Did they reject, what did they reject? Did they reject the message? Did they reject the prophet? Did they reject Allah? The maf'ul bihi is not mentioned. And of course, when it's not mentioned, there's tawassu' fil ma'na. There's, it means it could be anything or it could be all of this. So this creates openness in meaning. But what comes after that? فَكَذَّبُوا عَبْدَنَا. They specifically rejected. So again, Nuh is being highlighted in this ayat. Is being given priority. Is being given a special attention. At first, he was not mentioned. But by mentioning him after, it gives him a special attention. Like in particular, they rejected Nuh. In particular. So again, you see how there's an intimacy between Allah and his slaves. And again, by the use of the word abdana. Abdana, abd is the most elevated status one can have in the sight of Allah. Abd. In fact, this is an observation that I observed and I don't know what to make of it. The word abdahu or abduhu is used in the Quran for the Prophet ﷺ exclusively, except once for Zakaria. I don't know why. I would like to know why. So if there's anybody who maybe has come across this or is interested in finding this out, or I feel like that's an interesting connection. Like abd is used for the Prophet ﷺ, abduhu, except for Zakaria. Like this in mudaf ilayh, like that. And also the word abdana is used only for 4 prophets. Is used for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is used for Dawood, is used for Ayub, and it's used for Nuh in this surah. So I would like to know why these 4, and of course the thing is, when the Prophet ﷺ is hearing abdana or abdahu, who is he thinking of? He's thinking of himself, because that's how he's referred to in the Quran. So he can relate when he hears about the people of Nuh rejecting Nuh, and when he hears about all these things, he can relate, because his people currently are rejecting him. They are torturing the Muslims. They're doing the exact same thing that they did to Nuh. So the Prophet ﷺ can relate, can understand exactly what is going on. Subhanallah. So I think this is really like a consolation for the Prophet ﷺ. And when this surah is is completely hyperbolized by fear. There's a lot of extreme fear being captured here. You can see a little bit of snippets for rahmah, because when Allah is saying abdana, that is a show of love. That's a show of rahmah. So there's a little bit of like leeway. It's not all doom and gloom. Like there's rahmah in there for the right people. There's rahmah for Nuh alayhi salam. There's rahmah for the Prophet sallam. There's rahmah, and you can see it being captured here. وَقَالُوا مَجْنُونٌ مُزْدُجِرٌ, and they called him insane, and they called him possessed. Was dujir, like we said, can also mean like he was possessed by a jinn. That's what they called. So they called him insane, possessed man. Or was dujir could also be like the verb. And they pushed him away, and they rebuked him and threatened him. And this is exactly what happened to the Prophet ﷺ. Again, he's hearing these words, وَقَالُوا مَجْنُونٌ وَازْدُجِرٌ, and he knows he's been called majnoon and he's been called possessed. He's been called these things. Or even if he hasn't been called possessed, he has been rebuked. He has been threatened by his own people. So the Prophet ﷺ again is relating to this. And the mushrikun are hearing this, وَقَالُوا مَجْنُونٌ وَازْدُجِرٌ. They're hearing their own words in the people of Nuh. Their own words. These are their own words. They're calling the Prophet insane. So in other words, remember, sihrun mustamir, they said, oh, this Quran is just an ongoing magic. This is a never-ending spell. Well, guess what? You're under a spell. From the people of Nuh, they have been saying the same statements like you. So you are the ones who have been on an ongoing spell. You have been in delusion this whole time. Like from the people of Nuh, all this generation, you're under the same continuous spell, under the same continuous delusion. So you dare call this Quran sihr mustamir? You're the ones who are under sihr mustamir. I mean, clearly, because they say the same thing that you're saying. Subhanallah. How amazing is that Quran? Anyway. Now, the other thing is, if you don't like what somebody is saying, if, for example, your auntie comes over and she says some things like you don't really want to hear, like maybe she blubbers a lot, or she gossips a lot, or she says things that you really don't want to listen to. What do you normally do? You just be like, hey, auntie, I have a class, I have to go, I have to do this, I have some, yeah, you make an excuse, you leave. In other words, you just don't listen to them, right? You just avoid listening to them. But no, not these people. What did they do? They called him insane. They called him possessed. They went ahead and stopped people from listening to him. Like they were actively deterring people from the message. In other words, they started a smear campaign against the Prophet. They tried to ruin his name. They tried to ruin his reputation. They tried to discredit his name and his character. Like they went so much. If you don't like his message, don't listen to it. Why are you fighting the message? Why are you actively doing this? Because deep down, they're threatened by the message. They know, deep down, they know this message has some power in it. This message has some truth in it. This message cannot be, like, it cannot just be left like this. It will destroy their greed and their materialistic minds. So they actively fought the message. And therefore, they started calling the Prophet insane, and they started calling him names, and they did whatever they did, all the things that they did, because they understood, right? And again, when you call somebody possessed, when you hear somebody, this person has a jinn, or this person is possessed, what is the normal response? Most people will be like, they stay away. Oh, I cannot be next to this person because I'm afraid if maybe I come next to them, the jinn will jump from them into me. Like, yeah, people are afraid of people with jinn or people who are possessed. So when they spread this rumor that the Prophet ﷺ or Nuh alayhi salam has a jinn in him, in other words, people are going to keep their distance. What are they doing? Yu'ridu, they kept their distance. Subhanallah, like the ayahs, the way they just keep speaking to each other, it's just amazing. And subhanallah, the more I research this surah, the more questions that I have than answers, because it's so beautiful. So beautiful the way everything just plays together. And speaking of questions that I have about this surah, it says, كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح. قبلهم is muqaddam. Why is it muqaddam? I have no idea. I would like to know. So if anybody out there wants to research about that or think about it or has done something about it, please share with us. I don't know. So this is I have so many more questions, by the way, like so many questions regarding this surah. But alhamdulillah, whatever we can be able to get, may Allah open for us more. So now we come to the dua of Nuh. Okay, so that was their reaction. They called him insane, they called him possessed, they threatened him, they kicked him out, they did whatever they did, was dujr. Now فَدَعَا رَبَّهُ, da'a rabbahu, he called rabbahu. Again, look at the beautiful play of abd, and before Allah says abdana, and now he's saying rabbahu. So like master and slave, the intimate relationship between the slave and the master calls him the slave and the slave calls him the master. Like it's such a beautiful intimate relationship that Nuh alayhi salam has with Allah. And again, by using Rabb and Abd, the Prophet ﷺ is feeling this intimate connection. He's relating to this, what is being said. And then when you read this, it says, فَدَعَا رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ. دَعَا رَبَّهُ أَنِّي. There's an iltifat. It went from third person, رَبَّهُ, his master, to Anni, I am. Like it went from he to I. Because we know he's talking about Nuh. Nuh is the one who made this dua. And all of a sudden, it just went from him to I. And this is a beautiful, beautiful iltifat that is happening here. And it's even bringing us closer. And especially in particular, the Prophet ﷺ, who's undergoing through exactly what Nuh alayhi salam is going through. So by even removing, by bringing this iltifat, by saying, inni and not by saying anni and not annahu, it's making the Prophet ﷺ say these words, anni maghlubun fantasir. Like it's sort of like giving the dua of Nuh to the Prophet ﷺ by just making it first person and making it more intimate, bringing it closer. It makes us visualize like how just broken, how desperate Nuh alayhi salam was. You can imagine like he's there 950 years of calling his people, and his people are just rejecting him and calling him names. And Surah Nuh, when you read Surah Nuh, like you get the entire description, and it's like there's so much he went through. So he reaches a point where he doesn't decide, actually Allah tells him, no matter how much more da'wah you do right now, they're not going to believe. It's done. You have squeezed out all the believers from your community. There's not going to be any more believers. At this point, imagine, after 950 years of calling his people, and only after Allah tells him there's not going to be any more believers, at that point, that's when he says, Anni maghlubun fantasir. I am completely overwhelmed. I am completely overcome. Fantasir. So send down your aid. Subhanallah. And you can imagine the Prophet is hearing this, and it's as if Allah is telling him indirectly, just ask. Nuh alayhi salam asked, if you just say Anni maghlubun fantasir, and what happened when Nuh made this dua, we will see in the next ayat, فَفَتَحْنَا أَبْوَابًا, that immediately the dua was answered, and we opened the skies, and the earth burst forth with the springs, and there was just so much water everywhere. Imagine if the Prophet ﷺ used this dua, like immediately, like it would be total annihilation. You know, I imagine like this is like, you know, one of those movies where you have a red button, and if somebody presses that red button, you have kaboom, like some city just completely is decimated, annihilated, wiped off on the face of the earth. This is the red button for the Prophet ﷺ. He's being told, you know what? You could just say, Anni maghlubun fantasir. Khalas. And Makkah completely wiped off the planet. Just like that. But knowing, and this is my own thought, by the way, just a big disclaimer, this is my own thought, because I imagine knowing the Prophet ﷺ, rahmatun lil alameen, even if you give him a big red button, like rahmatun lil alameen, he's not going to use it. Like this, he spared, and we know the prophets are given each a dua that is answered, you know, and he said, I am sparing my one dua for the day of judgment for my people. Subhanallah, what a mercy the Prophet ﷺ. It just increases the love for the Prophet ﷺ. So when I imagine, like, even if he was given this big red button, he probably would not. And we know he didn't, because Makkah is still there today. So yeah, so he spared his one dua for the day of judgment. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And finally, as we wind up on this discussion, we have the word intasar, which is not nasr. Nasara would be to aid, give a massive aid. Intasara would be to seek revenge or avenge. Yeah. So it's, again, that exaggerated type of language is being used. And the maf'ul bihi, again, not mentioned. So fantasir ni, oh, actually it comes with a harf. So is it fantasir lahu or fantasir li, like seek revenge for me? Or is it seek revenge for yourself? We don't know, but some mufassir have said, you know, avenge me. Nuh is saying, avenge me. I am completely overwhelmed and overcome. So avenge me, Ya Rabb. And others have said, it's actually Nuh is saying, avenge yourself. Ya Allah, I have tried for 950 years. I can no longer do this. I don't know what else to do. So avenge yourself. You know, avenge yourself from their lies. Avenge yourself from their rejection and from their treatment of messengers. Avenge yourself. So either way, because it's not mentioned, both can apply. And we're going to stop there, inshallah. I don't know if you guys have a bit of time, because it would be nice to see the comparison of Surah Nuh. But I don't know. Like, I think we've covered so much information right now that it will feel too much to add some more. But I would urge you guys, like, just go read Surah Nuh. Go read after you've heard about this, and maybe it will even give you a clearer picture for when we do next week. Just read what Nuh alayhi salam went through. And it's a very short surah. It's a very nice surah. You can just read the translation. Open Quran.com, go to Quran.com, become a member of Quran.com. You know, you can even share your reflections on QuranReflect.com. So do that. And I hope you can find some benefit from that. I was hoping to maybe do a comparison with you, just to go through the entire surah, but I think we've covered quite a lot so far. I think it's safe. We can end there, inshallah. All right. So at that point, if there's any questions or clarifications or reflection points or something that came to your mind when you were listening to this ayat, or just anything really that you'd like to say, opening the floor. And if not, we can end. And I really hope that you guys are finding benefit from this.
Just wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
You know, when you say the disbelievers come out like locusts, I used to think this is something that applies to all humanity, because people obviously have died all those many years ago. So is there a description somewhere maybe else about how the believers would come out?
I'm not so sure, honestly, because when you look at the discussion, the discussion is addressing mostly disbelievers. The whole discussion is all about they, them, and then at the end, يَقُولُ الْكَافِرُونَ, the disbelievers will actually say, and that's describing the hal of يَخْرُجُونَ. يَقُولُ is the hal of يَخْرُجُونَ, how they will come out. So this entire theme is describing disbelievers in this particular surah. I am not so sure, but I know, like in another place, it says, مَنْ بَعَثَنَا مِنْ مَرْقَدِنَا. So you see that the believers would actually be in deep slumber, while the disbelievers are having adabul qabr, punishment in the grave, and very uncomfortable situations in the grave. The believers will actually be in peaceful slumber. And so when they're resurrected, they'll be like, hey, who woke us up from our deep sleep? Like, what's going on? Why are we awake? Man ba'athana min marqadina. Like, we were chilling, we were enjoying our nap or sleep, it was nice. Who is waking us up? So there's other descriptions, but I'm not so sure if there's a description like this for believers, I would check again if I find something, and yeah, I might share in the group. That's a very valid, beautiful question. I don't know, but I would imagine it's probably going to be better. I mean, there's going to be a lot of confusion, obviously, on the day of judgment, because it's a terrifying day. It's a really terrifying day. Whether you're a believer or a disbeliever, it's a terrifying day. And you can see from just some of the descriptions here of how terrifying it is. So I don't know, honestly. But this is particularly for disbelievers.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or clarifications or comments? Anything really? Okay. Looks like we're all, alhamdulillah, comfortable. So that's good. I will see you again next week for the Nahu and Sarf of the next 5 ayat, 11 to 15, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خيرا كثير.
وإياكم جزاكم الله خير.